Sorry about that. I was playing with my mic. Good morning, everyone. My name is Kevin. I am the product specialist for Skywatcher here in North America, and welcome to the What's Up webcast here at Skywatcher. I appreciate you guys joining us this morning on another Friday morning. If you've never been with us before, the What's Up webcast takes place every Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific, right here at the Skywatcher USA YouTube channel. We cover everything that has to do with astronomy, to what's up in the nighttime sky, to equipment, to helpful tips and tricks that might help advance your imaging or visual experience in astronomy. And then, of course, the last Friday of every month, we have a special guest on. But it is the first Friday of the month, which means we're checking out what's up in the nighttime sky for the month. Hopefully, this will encourage you to get out and check out some of these objects. But it is February. So with that being said, it's the shortest month of the year, and there's not a heck of a lot of neat, unique things happening this month, but there's still plenty of cool things to go out and observe, and we're going to take a look at those and we have a good time doing it. So like I said before, if you're new here, welcome. If you're joining us again, welcome back. Happy Friday. And we are happy to see you here this morning. So let's get started. Of course, as with anything, if you really enjoy watching our webcast here, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. It actually does help us out. You can go ahead and subscribe there. Anytime we upload and schedule new live video casts like this, you'll get an email saying all the new episodes that are coming up. Currently, we've scheduled everything out to March, which is already on the channel here. You get to see what we have coming up. So we're excited about that and bringing you along for the ride. If you ever want to check out, if you ever want to email us and ask us about a topic maybe that we should cover, or you have any questions on the webcast, you can email us at support@skywatcherusa.com and just title it What's Up. I know we've gotten a couple emails this week about some topics that we're going to be looking into, so those of you who've written in, I appreciate that, and we'll definitely take a look at those as well. So, as for that, let's get started. So, okay. So, as with everything, the biggest object in the nighttime sky right now is the moon. And it's something that we kind of have to plan our month around, especially if we're going out to a nice dark sky site and we want to do some observing, or maybe there's that really faint target you want to image. You have to keep an eye on the moon phases. So when is new moon this month? When is full moon? We're going to look at that right now. So new moon is actually coming up this coming week. It's February 11th. And that's going to mean that your dark sky weekend of the month is the 12th and the 13th. So next weekend is going to be the time to get out. Good luck with that on the, being Valentine's Day. Some of us might be stuck with that. Something to keep an eye out. But that is going to be your dark sky weekend, is the 12th and the 13th of the month. So plan accordingly. Full moon is going to be later in the month. Second to the last day of the month, it would be the 27th is when full moon is for the month of February. And when we're talking about the full moon, every full moon has a name. And this month, the full moon being on the 27th, is going to be the snow moon. And the snow moon gets its names from the Dakota tribes because that's usually when the season has the heaviest snowfall, which I think many can relate to right now. We are getting into the last major month of winter. March will bring in the coming of spring. So this is generally when we're going to have that heavy snowfall. I know last week here in Arizona it got really cold. We had snow in very low altitudes, and I know across the country they've been getting some really frigid weather, so it's kind of appropriate that this is known as the snow moon for February. So that is the official full moon name for this month's moon. But some other names, you have the eagle moon, the raccoon moon, and of course the goose moon. And it depends on what tribe you're looking at. If you want to know more about these, you can just Google it, Farmer's Almanac. actually has all the folklore behind a lot of the full moons, and you can learn about each full moon for each month and what the folklore behind those particular full moon names is. So something kind of cool. It's kind of fun to do as an outreach event thing to explore the full moon and the folklore behind its names. Now, that pretty much wraps it up for the moon. And the moon is always going to be really dynamic. So if you just got your scope, let me just go back here real quick. We kind of flew through the moon a little too fast. So the full moon, obviously being the 27th, and the new moon being the 11th, you have plenty of time between those two dates to get out and start observing the moon. Now, if you're joining us and you're new to astronomy, the best time to observe the moon is when it's in its crescent phase or moving up to that first quarter, because you have the shadow or the terminator moving across the face of the moon. That's going to give you that nice detail right there to get some nice contrast in the craters and stuff. As we move to the full moon, it's going to become brighter, obviously. You're not going to have as much definition. Even if you're using a filter, like a polarizer, ND, or a moon filter, observing the full moon through a telescope, you're going to lose a lot of the dynamics that you would looking at it earlier in the month. So, but it is a really cool photo op to get the full moon rising against some kind of landscape. So plan for February 27th if you want that, photo moment to get that rising over some mountains or some trees or something neat. I want to aim for February 27th. But there's plenty of time to get some nice viewing in on the moon between the 11th and the 27th. So keep an eye out for that if you're looking at observing the moon. All right, planets. So planets. The planets right now, we've lost a lot of our major naked eye planets. Jupiter and Saturn are pretty much gone from the evening sky. They're coming up in the morning right now. But the three visible planets that we have in the evening right now are Neptune, Uranus, and Mars, in that order as they set. And we'll kind of break into some of the details of those right now. So Neptune, if you've never observed Neptune before, Neptune needs about a 5-inch or 130 millimeter or larger telescope. It looks like a dim blue sphere, but right now it's not in the best position to be viewing Neptune, because as faint as it is, very, very low in the western sky just after sunset, it's pretty much setting at 8 o'clock. So you have a very small window to get out there and view Neptune. And it's really not in an ideal position to view it, but it is a really cool planet to check out because it is the most distant. Now, if you've ever tried Neptune before, it is fairly small, being several billion miles out there. So you may need some magnification. Larger telescopes can help, but do keep in mind that if you are using larger telescopes, because of how low in the atmosphere that this is sitting, you're going to have a lot to contend with as far as seeing conditions. It's not going to be ideal for really getting the best view of Neptune right now. We're kind of at the end of the season for planet Neptune, but it's still there if you want to give it a shot. It's just going to be low, and you'll need a nice clear western horizon to grab it. So if you want to give it a shot, it's still up there to take a look at, but this is probably the last month, especially by the end of the month, it will be pretty much gone from the evening skies. Now, Uranus is still high enough in the sky right now to get a decent view. It's not far from Mars, so it's fairly high in the sky after sunset. And actually, we have... Let's pull Delarium up here real quick. If you've never used Delarium before, it's actually a great program. It's free, and it's basically a planetarium program. You can get this on all kinds of systems. But it is a great planetarium software if you kind of want to learn the nighttime sky and play around with it. So that's what we're going to be using right now. I've set this for, let's just go to, we'll just do that right there. So this is our evening sky tonight. Probably around 7 o'clock is when this actually is. So right up here, let me see if I can get these constellations on real quick. And just for anybody who needs the labels. So here's the constellations that are up this evening, about 7 o'clock. So this is kind of a cool thing to see. Let me back this out about an hour. Not that far. See if we can find Neptune out here. So as you can see, about 7:15, Neptune is really low in the western horizon out here. And it's going to be a bit of a challenge to see, as we were talking about. And it's only going to be, even at 7 o'clock, and this is from my latitude here in Arizona, which is 33 degrees roughly. We're only at an altitude of 15 degrees. So it's going to be really low to catch Neptune. So that's just the information there for Neptune. But Uranus, which is next in line, is real high up in the sky right now, right after sunset. And it's in a really good position to be viewing Uranus right now. It's at an altitude of 60 degrees at 7 o'clock and is pretty much going to be visible up until, I believe, right around midnight is when we start to lose it. So let's just pan that. Yeah, so just after midnight, Uranus steps out of the nighttime sky. So if you want to get out and actually view a decent distant planet, you will need a telescope for this, probably about 4 or 5 inches in aperture, or bigger, always helps. The nice thing about Uranus being so much closer than Neptune is it actually does look like a planet in the field of view of the telescope, and it's easy to see. So it actually looks like a light blue sphere amongst the star field. Neptune can kind of fall back and kind of look like a star if you don't have enough magnification or resolution on it, where Uranus, being closer, even at lower powers, you will notice that it's more of a pronounced ball rather than a star in a star field. So Uranus is a fun planet, and then trying to see how many moons you can pull out is a fun observing project that you can give a go there. It is challenging for imaging, though, because it's so small. So if you're a planetary imager, Uranus is going to be a little bit of a difficult one to see. But give that one a try. It's kind of a fun planet to see, and it's obviously one that you're going to have to check off the list if you're observing planets. Now, not far from Uranus is Mars. Now, Mars was in a really ideal observing position in the fall. It was really close. It was one of its closest approaches, and it was really quite large enough for even modestly telescopes to get a good view of the dark details and the ice caps and all kinds of stuff on the face of Mars. But Mars is moving away from us now in its orbit, as that's why NASA and any major space agency will wait until the planets get close to launch their missions. And now that we're separating off of our orbits again, it's moving away from us, and it has been for last couple months quite rapidly. So the position of Mars is getting, it's still high in the sky. It's in a good position for viewing, but its size is getting smaller and smaller. So if you're going out there and viewing Mars, it's going to be difficult because it is getting so much smaller than what it has been. So if you're trying to get some detail on it, it's probably going to be challenging to really get some nice detail out of it at this point because it's moving so much further away from us. So if you are going to be observing Mars, you might need a fair amount of magnification. More resolution would be nice. If you just got your first telescope for the holidays and you're just starting to get out and using it, I've had several people email in saying they were disappointed with the view of Mars. That honestly has nothing to do with the telescopes that you're using from whoever. It's not in a good position anymore. It is moving away from us. So it's hard for us to get a good view of Mars at the moment. So you can still go out, get a fun view of it. You can see the red planet. You might be able to make out some basic details on there, but it is going to be quite small. So just keep that in mind, that you may need some magnification on it, but it's not going to be anywhere near what it was in the fall. You're going to have to wait until 2022 when it ropes back around in its orbit to get another really nice view of Mars because of how the positionings work in the orbits. So that's what Mars is doing right now. Uranus isn't far from it either. So those are the two planets that are really nice and high in the evening sky. Of course, we do get Venus in the morning sky. We're kind of just focusing on the evening stuff at the moment, but you can get Venus, Jupiter, Saturn. Those are up in the early morning right now. So if you want to get out and view, they are going to be low, so they're not in an ideal position for you to go out and view them in the morning, but they are there if you want to give it a shot. But it will be improving as the months go on and those get higher and higher in the sky. And eventually we will get Jupiter and Saturn back into the evening sky as we push later into the year, late summer, early fall-ish time frame is when we'll be getting those two gas giants back into the evening sky again. So right now, if you're into planets, we're not really in a great position for any of the planets right now. You just kind of have to wait for it to kind of become planet season once again. So we just finished up with a really strong planetary season in the fall of last year, and we're at pretty much the tail end of that right now. So sorry, if you're into planets, it's pretty much done for the season at this point. So now, another object that we've talked about on this webcast, I try to bring up every webcast as well, of course, is the sun. Now, the sun right now isn't extraordinarily active right now. There's not a lot happening, but the nice thing about the sun is it kind of comes in waves. The cycle of the sun is every 11 years for solar maximum. And we're actually starting to come back out of minimum and starting to head towards maximum. So a lot of detail has popped up in the last several months. We've had some really nice sunspots and incredible detail, like this one up here from a couple months ago. There's been some really awesome stuff to see on the sun, but it's kind of comes and goes. But it is increasing. So if you have a solar scope, particularly a hydrogen alpha solar telescope or filter, for the sun, not an imaging one. And you can go back to our webcast about solar filters and such to go over that. Those types of filters are what you're going to be wanting to observe the sun with right now as details change. And the cool thing about the sun is because how dynamic it is it's going to change every day. I have friends that go out every morning and they observe the sun for 5 or 10 minutes. They see what's going on. Sometimes you're going to have something that's just awesome. Other times it might be kind of quiet, but over the next couple years, you're going to notice that it's really going to ramp up, and hopefully we'll get some really cool stuff in the coming years. But it is a fun object to go out and observe, sketch, image, view, whatever you are interested in doing. But the nice thing, like I said before, about the sun is because of how dynamic it is, and it changes every day, it can even change throughout the day, that you're never viewing the same object. You're always going to see something different. There's going to be a new detail or what have you, but there's going to be something cool to see. So the sun is something you definitely want to keep an eye on right now, because you never really know when we're going to get a major sunspot or an active region or a prominence or what kind of cool details that you might want to see. Now, I've talked about this before. Let me pull it up here real quick. If you want to see what's going on the sun, maybe you wake up, you're like, hey, is it worth checking out the sun this morning? Do I want to drag out my stuff? I use this website. This is the Gong H Alpha website, and I just go on GONG, and then H Alpha is what you can put into Google, and it'll pop up. But these are from professional observatories across the world. They're all labeled in there, several different telescopes. Constantly taking pictures, and the ones with the green check marks are showing you which ones are active currently. So you can always get a pretty constant view of the sun and hydrogen alpha to know what's going on or if something cool's going on. So like Big Bear in California, we got some prominences up there. There's a little filament right there. Not a lot going on in the sun today, but I usually check this every morning just to see if it's worth popping out one of the solar scopes and taking a look, because you never know what you're going to get. One day it could be nothing. The next day you could have some huge thing to go check out. So if you want to keep up with that and see if it's worth going out, check out this website. It's very, very helpful to keep up to date with what's going on in the sun. And the nice thing, here's Hawaii right now. That's there on Mauna Loa. And, there's southern hemisphere ones. Sun still looks the same in the southern hemisphere, but if you want to know if it's worth going out, this is the website I use, and it's incredibly effective to see, is there anything cool coming on. But the sun, because it is moving into maximum over the next couple of years, it's going to be changing. So keep an eye on that. Kind of a cool thing to check out. Now, another thing that happens usually on a monthly basis is a meteor shower of some kind. Now, February doesn't really have any major meteor showers. There's a small one that occurs throughout the month. No major ones. The Alpha Centaurids are the one that happens pretty much throughout the entire month. The 2nd through the 19th is the peak times. And you're only looking at about 6 meteors per hour. So I don't know that many people would notice that there's a meteor shower. But if you do, they're going to be coming from Centaurus constellation. So that's kind of what we're looking at for meteor showers. Not a lot going on as far as February is going. There are some major ones that are coming up. Obviously, later in the year, we can always look forward to, but right now, nothing major to report as far as meteor showers go. But this is why we do this every month, because everything changes. Now, with all that being said, probably the biggest type of viewing to do right now, of course, is deep sky. Now, if you're a deep sky imager or observer, the sky right now is flooded with targets, and probably more targets than we even have time to talk about. Obviously, we could do a whole hour on what's up in the nighttime sky as far as just deep sky targets go. But I just want to cover some of the basic ones. If you've never joined us for this type of episode before, when it comes to deep sky observing, I try to give a sprinkle of easy targets, familiar targets, and some complex and challenging targets for both imaging and visual. So I try to give you a scatter of things to check out. But there's a lot that's going on as far as deep sky is this month. A lot of the fall objects are setting, giving way to many of the very prominent wintertime objects. And then, of course, as we get into midnight, we have some of the springtime coming up into play. So we have quite a large array of objects to choose from, depending on how late into the night you want to go. Now, of course, one of the highlight targets right now is the Pleiades. This is in the constellation of Taurus, also known as M45. This is an awesome beginner object. It's awesome to view from dark skies. It's easy to see from light polluted skies like your backyard. You can see the naked eye from a basic backyard. Great in binoculars and small telescopes. But then as you get bigger telescopes, especially when you get into dark skies, the amount of stars in this field is staggering. So very cool object, very easy object. I've said this before in last month's webcast. If you just got your first telescope and you're still trying to explore the sky, M45 and the Pleiades cluster, as it's known as, is a great object to go out and view because it's so easy to see. It's a nice open cluster in Taurus. It's easy to capture nice images of this in town if you're an imager. A lot of these details, this is a reflection nebula inside of the cluster. It's normally blue dust in there. You can generally get this from your backyard with today's modern cameras. Of course, if you get out to darker locations, there's all kind of dust around this star field and beyond that would be really cool to pull out if you were in the right location for it. So, of course, M45, the Pleiades, just show you where that's at right now. There we go. So you have Mars. It's going to be just above Mars. Almost not quite vertical at zenith, but just past zenith after sunset, pretty much. But you'll be able to see it nice and high. It almost looks like a micro dipper. A lot of people I've seen say, oh, it's the little dipper. I like to call it the micro dipper because it's so small. But it does resemble what the dippers look like. Got the handle and then all that in there, the cup. So all that's in there right there. So it's kind of a cool object to see. It never really gets old. It's a fun one to share with friends and families, or if you just got your kids a telescope, that's a great deep sky object to start going into. And that's kind of the cool thing about winter, at least here in the northern hemisphere, is there's so many easy deep sky objects to observe or image. So you just got your stuff for the holidays. There's so many awesome and easy targets for you to explore in the wintertime, and the Pleiades is just one of them. Of course, the most famous one in the nighttime sky is M42, the Orion Nebula, and of course its next door neighbor that's in the same field, that is the Running Man Nebula. Very easy to see in light polluted skies. You don't really need any major optics to see it. Binoculars would work fine, but the bigger the telescope, the more detail you can see. Orion's really interesting because if you get out to a dark sky site, it's so amazing how much detail can be seen even in a small telescope. But if you have a friend who's got a big scope, 15, 16, 20, 25, 30, something big, Orion is so dynamic that it looks cool in any telescope. But when you get to a dark sky site and you have a variety of different optics to check it out in, it's really neat to observe it, see what detail you can pull out. But this is the trademark object for the winter skies. It's the easiest nebula to photograph. So if you have a DSLR and like a 200, 300, 400 millimeter lens, you can get a great image of this with just that and a tracker. So it's a great object to work with, both visually and imaging. And for imaging, it's nice because it really is going to teach you how to process. So because of how bright the core of this nebula is as opposed to the outer wings of the nebula, you're going to learn how to bring out faint detail as well as work on the bright core in there to not blow it out. So Orion really will teach you quite a bit on your processing technique as well. So great object. I'm pretty sure no one ever gets sick of it. Everyone has to stop by and say hi to it for the season. And of course, that's nice and easy to see. It is, 7 o'clock right after the sun goes down. It's kind of going to be fairly high in the southeastern sky, maybe higher overhead in northern latitudes, or more southern latitudes, but it's easy to see pretty much anywhere in the northern hemisphere at the moment, right here in the belt of Orion, and easy to check that out right now. So that is the Orion Nebula, everyone's favorite for the most part for the wintertime. Now, of course, next to Orion is a Horsehead Nebula, IC 434, also in Orion. This is very challenging to see visually. You see images like this plastered all over the internet. It's incredibly easy to get a nice image of the Horsehead nowadays with modern imaging equipment, but it's very difficult to see visually. And if you're at home with a hydrogen alpha filter and like a 200 millimeter telephoto lens, you can get a great shot of the Horsehead Nebula in like 10 minutes. No big deal. Imaging, however, or visual, however, it's very difficult to see. You do need dark skies. You're going to need telescopes probably of at least 8 inches in aperture or bigger. The more aperture you have, the better. An H-beta filter is ideal for seeing this visually, and you're going to need a lot of patience because you're basically looking for a black thumbprint on black tablecloth. You're moving the telescope side to side can be helpful to see the Horsehead. You're basically trying to see the Horsehead illuminated against the hydrogen cloud in the back. That's what you're trying to see there. So it's difficult to see. I have a 16-inch Dob right now, and I can see it. I have seen it in there multiple times. It's not the most challenging thing in the world, but very careful eye and take your time. It's more of a thing about patience when observing the Horsehead and just understanding what you need to do to see it. But you will need dark skies to see it. You cannot do this from a light polluted location. It's just too faint and not enough contrast. So dark skies, good transparency, that's what you're going to want. But if you're an imager, it's a walk in the park. Just throw the camera on there and go for it, and no problem. So great object to see right now. That, of course, is in not far from Orion. Orion's down here. It's off the bright star Alnitak in the constellation of Orion. So another good one to see. More of a challenging object visually, a fun one to do for image. So that is the Horsehead Nebula. Always a fun one to see, and another good one for beginner imagers. Now, another one that's actually, there's 3 cool nebulas right in a row in the constellation of Orion. We have, obviously, Orion, M42. We have the Horsehead, IC434. And then, of course, we have M78. M78 is also an Orion. This one is really best done from a dark sky location. This is a very complex nebula. There's a lot of different features in M78. You have dark nebula, you have reflection nebula, and you have a little bit of emission running through the region there. So there's a lot of stuff going on. Normally in a decent sized telescope from dark skies, you can get the reflection nebula in there, and you can get some of the dark band, the main band right here, going across the brighter region of the nebula. That's about all you're going to get. You could try in darker skies. You probably get a little bit more detail out of it, and more aperture always helps if seeing is good. There's not really any filter that's going to help you out with this either, but I would try at least an 8-inch telescope. You could probably do it a little bit smaller. You could see just the glow and the main dark band, especially from darker locations, but more aperture will always be helpful. Imaging, however, it is an easy capture for imaging, but there's a lot of complex details in this nebula. So processing this is going to be a little bit more of a challenge because you have a lot of faint detail in there. The dark nebula that's woven through the reflection nebula. There's a lot of really cool things to gather from M78. And if you are imaging, there's not a lot of hydrogen detail in the nebula itself, but you have part of the Barnard loop right here, especially if you have a wide field telescope, like something with a 500, 600 millimeter focal length, and you can start to collect some of the Barnard loop, which is a big hydrogen loop in Orion, just to the left of this. You can add a little bit of hydrogen alpha detail when imaging with an H-alpha filter. You won't get a lot of the main nebula, but you can add that to your red channel, and you can see a lot of really cool things pop out when adding hydrogen detail on top of your red channel when imaging M78. So it's not a great narrowband object. That's why it's not super awesome to do it in town. But you can be surprised at what's floating in there when combining certain details. So that's M78. Definitely worthwhile target to go check out while Orion is still nice and high in the sky right now. Now we're going to dip off into some of the more challenging targets right now. One right now is Sharpless 308, or SH2-308. Now the Sharpless catalog is a large collection of nebulas scattered across the sky. A lot of the popular nebulas have Sharpless numbers. They are part of that category there, but they have some really interesting nebulas out there, and if you want to try something more challenging beyond NGC and Messier's, dig out the Sharpless catalog because there's so many weird and cool objects in here. So this is Sharpless 308. Sharpless 308's in Canis Major, and this is really difficult to see visually. I'm going to guess you probably need at least a 12-inch, very dark skies, UHC or O3, because it is a very heavy in oxygen 3 as far as signal goes. This whole bubble right here is oxygen 3. This is a 4-hour stack of 4-hour exposure in O3 data right there. Now, this is a challenging target, meaning that the biggest challenge about this is it doesn't rise very high in the northern hemisphere. Usually, this was taken from our remote observatory. It's at 35 degrees latitude in California. We only get about a 4-hour window to capture this nebula. So the further north you go, the harder it's going to be to capture it. You know, if you have faster optics, that's going to be helpful, but Sharpless 308 does sit on the lower side of the southern portion of the sky. Let me see if I can bring this up real quick. Don't know how deep the catalog here goes on let's try its other catalog. Okay, there we go. So this is Sharpless 308. It's actually pretty easy to find. If you can find that the bright star right there, you can find it. It's actually fairly large, so having a decent field of view, that's going to be needed. But you can see it doesn't get very high in the sky right now. So, you know, I think it's maximum altitude when it transits, at least for us and our observing location. It only gets to be about 32 degrees in altitude. It's not that high. But it is a really cool field of view. But you're going to be wanting to image this in O3. It's got a lot of detail in oxygen 3. So you want to make sure that the moon is probably going to be down, because the moon does emit light in this frequency. So generally shooting around new moon, or when there's a small crescent or the moon is late in the evening, would be the best time to do it. This was taken with a 3 nanometer O3 filter. Like I said, 4 hours of exposure time stack will give you a pretty nice shot at that. But that is Sharpless 308. One of my favorites. Very cool nebula, very big nebula, but something to definitely go at if you're looking for something that's off the beaten path. Now, the next one is a mix of difficult and really easy at the same time. So M78, this is M81, M82. Many of us are pretty much familiar with these two galaxies. They're in Ursa Major, Big Dipper. You can see these in a 50 millimeter finder scope from like basic skies. You see them as little fuzzies. If you've got a larger telescope, you can easily bring those out. If you're in dark skies and you have telescopes around 10 inch or bigger, the details in the arm of M81 is phenomenal. If you've got a 16 inch or bigger telescope, it's mind-boggling how cool these two galaxies look in a nice dark sky and a big scope. But yeah, so you have M81 and M82, the cigar galaxy back here. These are very easy targets to see, very easy to photograph. You can do them from in town in your backyard to get just the galaxies. However, the challenging part of this region of the sky is all this nebulosity behind the galaxies. Actually, it's not even behind, it's in front of them. The galaxies are behind it. They are the background objects, where the Integrated Flux Nebula, or IFN, which is all this like wavy detail in there, that is very difficult to capture. It requires dark skies, and it's very faint and delicate, so processing is going to be a challenge here. I do know a couple of observers who have been able to see some of the brighter regions in the darkest of skies, but you're going to make sure you've got everything's got to be right to see it. Good transparency, decent aperture, and very careful observing of this location. But you could probably get some of the fainter or the brighter areas of the IFN Nebula up there. And just to give you an idea, here's the luminance channel of this particular shot before we really went in and processed the galaxies. There's all kinds of detail. There's a lot of other galaxies in this field too, so it's kind of a mix. You're shooting a very easy object, but there's a lot of challenging objects within the same field. So it's a very cool region of the sky to image at that point. So that is M81, M82, and the Integrated Flux Nebula as well. So easy and challenging all at the same time. Also real quick, if you are imaging these two and you want to bring out the detail in M82 back here, that kind of reddish region in there, do a couple hours of hydrogen alpha. There's also some cool detail in M81 that will come out. There's some star forming regions in M81 that'll pop out, but doing a little bit of H-alpha data and applying that to your red channel will help pop that detail out a little bit more. So that is the M81, M82, and the Integrated Flux Nebula. If you're looking for an easy and challenging all-in-one field, that is the way to go at the moment. Next one. I'm a really big fan of the Abell planetaries. I think they're kind of fun. They've got really unique details. Hold on, there's a question here about the galaxies. I always call M82 Harley Davidson. Got it. Okay. Thanks for that in the chat. So moving on real quick. I'm a big fan of the Abell planetaries. They're challenging planetaries. They're usually very spherical. They look really cool in a lot of things. They are visually obtainable. There's not that many of them, so you could easily go through and hit them throughout an evening if you were up all night. But this is Abell 33, or the Diamond Ring Nebula. This is in Hydra. The Abell planetaries are not something that comes up too often. A lot of people are busy imaging, the favorites or viewing the favorites. But if you're looking for a challenge, both imaging and visually, Abells are a lot of fun. You will need about a 10-inch telescope at least to get at least this one. Some of the Abells are more challenging to where you might need something 15, 18, 20-inch category. You're going to want a UHC or O3 because a lot of these are planetaries and a lot of them are visible in that particular wavelength of light. So this is Abell 33. And what's kind of cool about this one is it has this star in the foreground, the nebula's in the background, but just the alignment as we see it here on Earth, it looks like a diamond ring. So it's kind of a fun one to see. It's very strong in O3, so if you're going to be imaging, try doing O3. You want to do a bicolor. You could do H alpha and O3 and combine them together to get a bicolor image, but that is Abell 33 in Hydra. Let's see if I can pull that up here really quick. There we go. So this is where Abell 33 is. You have Leo over here, Canis Major, Canis Minor, and you have Hydra working its way down south. But right over here is where Abell 33 is. So it's a pretty cool nebula to photograph and see. If you're going out to some dark sky sites, it's in a good position, probably around 10 o'clock it looks like. And that's in the south-southeast. Right there, but it looks like it does get rather high in the sky in the south, so you've got some good time right now if you want to view it, and so it's definitely worth checking out there at this point. So I would definitely recommend getting that out at the moment. So that is Abell 33. If you're looking for more challenging planetary nebulas, look up the Abell catalog. There's Abell galaxies and Abell nebulas. If you were more interested in the nebulas, go check out the Abell planetary nebulas and check all that out. There's a lot of cool things up in that region right now and in the summertime. Now, we might finish up a little early today, which is fine because we ran over last week. The next one is the Leo Triplet. Now, if you're getting up later in the evening, the Leo Triplet is starting to come up. It's in the constellation of Leo. There are 3 galaxies in the triplet, M65, M66, and NGC 3628. A lot of times you can get these 3 all on the same field of view. So it's a fun one to image. Visually, M65 and 66 can generally be seen in moderate locations, but NGC 3628 is going to be a lot harder to see. You would need some dark skies to pull that one out. Larger aperture always helps. I did that. So if you're imaging from home, you should be able to get all 3. It might take a little bit more integration time with that. There's not a lot of narrowband you can really do at all with these. You just have to do your typical color data. But that is a fun collection of galaxies to see this time of year, especially if you're going to be up in the evening sky. And, it's not hard to find these right now. So let's just show where those are at. So this is the Leo trio right over here. They're kind of in the bottom portion of Leo the Lion right down here. So actually not far from Vesta, dwarf planet Vesta. So the Leo trio right now, if you're going to be staying up into the late, or you're looking for if you're imaging and you're looking for something to capture in the later portion of the night, the Leo triplet would be a good one to hit if you're just looking for something that's on the easier side. We do have Virgo coming up as well. There's all kinds of challenging galaxies and fields of galaxies in there. But just to wrap it up, as an easy one that's kind of fun, the Leo triplet is definitely a fun one to check out. If you're in dark skies, it's a nice view of 3 galaxies. You can generally fit them in the same field of view as, in most telescopes there. So that's pretty much it. So yeah, that kind of wraps up this week's episode of What's Up in the Nighttime Sky. If you enjoyed this and you want to keep up with what we're doing in the future, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. And if you have any questions or you want us to do a particular episode on something, you can email us at support@skywatcherusa.com and just title it What's Up. If you have any questions now, I'll be happy to take those. Real quick, we also have our threadless shop. If you are looking for some cool shirts or jackets, we have our threadless shop. You can just pick what you want and order it from there. You can pick your colors, all kinds of stuff. So that is the threadless. That's skywatcher.threadless.com. If you want to get some Skywatcher swag to match your Skywatcher scope, there you go. We've got a couple different designs up there right now, and we'll probably be adding more in the future. So that is the skywatcher.threadless.com store, and you can go check that out if you want there as well. Next week, real quick, before I jump into questions, this is from an episode that we've been asked to do for a while. We find it's time to probably do it. We're going to do an EQ6R overview episode. We're going to dive into probably our most popular mount of all time, the EQ6R. We're going to talk about its specs, what's kind of cool about it, some helpful tips and tricks about it. So if you're interested in one or you own one and you want some kind of overview on it, we're going to be talking about the EQ6R next week. So tune in back for that as well. And like I said, we do have our schedule for February already posted on the YouTube channel, and we just added March last night, so you can see all the March episodes that are coming up as well. So we'll hopefully see you guys next week for that. So with that being said, if you guys have any questions, now's the time to do it. I know there's some floating around. Let me dig into this real quick. First question. The Leo triplet is my personal favorite. Would you say LRGB is the best solution? Yes. If you're going to be imaging the Leo triplet, you pretty much have no option to shoot it other than doing color. So either with a one-shot color camera, or if we're using monochrome, LRGB. If you're in a dark sky, you can get some good luminance data behind that. That'll help bring out some of the details there. So that would be something to definitely work with on that. So, yeah, if you're shooting the Leo triplet, you're probably going to have to do it in color regardless. So, yeah, one-shot color or LRGB would be the way to go. Let's see. Oh, yes, Cameron. It's been so long since I've done any outreach events. The Eskimo Nebula, NGC 2392 up in Gemini. That's an awesome little nebula. Great detail. If you actually magnify a lot, if you got like a 12, 14, 16-inch telescope, if you magnify that quite a bit and put a filter in there, you can actually see the detail in the kind of the Eskimo head as opposed to the parka. It's actually really cool to see. I've gotten to observe that through the 24-inch Clark refractor up at Lowell Observatory a couple years back, and it was amazing what that nebula looks like when you get some serious aperture thrown on there. But yeah, the Eskimo Nebula, I should have thrown that one in there. That's a great one to check out as well. There's all kinds of stuff up right now. Like I said, we could have done a whole episode on just deep sky targets for this time of year. All those are very, very good. I see there's some other comments on different objects that are up as well. So, like I said, there's so many objects that are visible right now that we could have done an entire episode on just that. And, maybe someday we will do some challenging targets on that. Just bought an EQ6R. Congratulations. Welcome to the Skywatcher team on that. Any info on scope delivery, anticipated refractor versus Newtonian deliveries? So we've kind of brought this up in the past. Right now, the entire telescope industry is basically dealing with a surge of interest, and it's hard for them and us as well to keep up with the demand and production at the same time. So that's why it's so hard to get new equipment right now. We are making stuff, so is everyone else, but it's taking time to meet the demand, and at the time, the demand is crazy high. So while many might be frustrated that it's taking a long time to get your equipment, you have to think on the other side, this is incredibly good for our hobby. It's incredibly healthy for our hobby, and what's happening now will hopefully inject a massive amount of new interest in the astronomy world and bring a whole new generation of amateur astronomers into our hobby. So while it might take a couple months to get your equipment, if you placed your order and you just be patient, you'll get it. I'm pretty sure whoever you ordered it from, they're producing it. They want to fulfill it just as much as you do. Just be patient. But on the flip side, do remember that if you really do enjoy this hobby, now is the best time we've ever seen for it, because there's so much new interest coming into the hobby. It's going to make a really good push for the future and advancement of astronomy as the years go on. So it's kind of this crazy time right now. So just be patient, be understanding. Everyone's working as hard as we can to get that stuff done. As far as our equipment, if you want to know lead times, you can just email us at support@skywatcherusa.com. You'll just have to tell us what model you're looking for, because we have a massive list and it varies on model to model. So I can't give you exact time right now. But if you email and tell us exactly which ones you're looking at, we can be a little bit more helpful at giving you a rough window. Next question is that best LRGB or narrowband? Pamela, I'm not sure what you're referring to. It might be about the Leo Triplet. The Leo Triplet doesn't really have a lot going on for it in narrowband, so this would be just LRGB for shooting the Leo Triplet. And most galaxies, narrowband isn't going to be anything. We actually just did an episode on imaging filters and how to use them like 2 weeks ago. So if you want to if you're not sure or you're just learning about filters, we did a whole episode about filters and when to use each filter on a previous episode about a couple weeks ago. So that will be helpful if you want to know when to use this filter and when to use that filter. So we had that all there, and that's there. Oh, you were asking about the Eskimo Nebula. Eskimo Nebula can be, because it's an emission nebula, it's a planetary that is an emission nebula. Yes, you could use H alpha, O3. You probably won't get a lot with the sulfur filter, but you could try it. Or you could do LRGB and mix some narrowband in there. There's a bunch of stuff you could do on that. Just remember, though, that the Eskimo is very small. So if you have a short refractor or short focal length scope, it's going to be tiny on there. You may have to crop quite a bit to get it. So that's one of the objects that would do better with 1,000 millimeter or longer focal length, high resolution cameras to pull out that detail. But yeah, the Eskimo would work for LRGB if you want like a true visible light look, or you could do narrowband with it as well. Predominantly H alpha and O3. Sulfur, it's probably not super active in. There's not a lot of objects that have a lot of sulfur up there, so something to look at. I have friends considering other brands and wanted to consider your... Oh, we appreciate that. Yeah, so if you want to know about a particular model and you're trying to push people over to us, which we for sure appreciate, will be helpful. We'll be happy to give you a lead time on the particular models. The Esprits are very popular. It takes a while to get those, and a lot of them are sold out at the moment before they even get to us. So if you're looking for Esprits, you're looking at several month lead time if you just put the order in now. The doublets, I'm not so sure what they're looking like right now. I'd have to look at our list. They might be a little easier to get, but as long as you're patient, we'll get it to you. So, because we are producing as fast as we can, and still trying to maintain our quality, of course. So, but if that's pretty much it, you guys, I really appreciate everyone taking the time to be here this morning. Again, join us next week. We're going to be doing an EQ6R overview video. That's not going to be showing you how to set it up. We're just going over the features and the design and, you know, what the EQ6R offers, and give you some helpful tips on that at the moment. So we'll take a look at that. Steve, any new info on the Comet? I should have looked this up beforehand. Let me see if we can pull that up right now. There's a website I like to use when I'm looking up comet details. I don't keep up with comets a lot because they fluctuate so much. Let me find this real quick. I can never remember the name of this website. But let's see if we can find it. Oh, here we go. So if you want to know about comets, this is what I use. It says cometchasing.skyhound.com. I'm sure there's several comets up right now. I'm not familiar with the one right now. I don't know if it's Russell Linear. That's a 12th magnitude right now. I don't know if the magnitudes on this are accurate to what's occurring right now, so I apologize, Stephen, if I'm not hitting it. But this is the website I use for any currently visible comets. So this is what I would check out right there. So there could be a good one apparently this December, so that's something for us to check out. Comet A1 Leonard, but I'm not aware of any comet right now. But again, it's hard to keep track of them all. So if you want to keep up with it, this is the website that I use for that. I'll have to dig through there and keep an eye on that. So I appreciate you bringing that up. All right, guys, it is that time. Thank you so much for spending your morning with us here at Skywatcher. If you liked it, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. We will see you next week for our EQ6R overview video. We've got a lot of stuff going on this month for such a short month. All of that is posted on the YouTube channel. We're going to have astronaut Don Pettit. He's flown to the ISS 3 times. He'll be with us on the last Friday of the month. That's already posted, so we've got some really cool stuff in the works. So we definitely appreciate you being here for the ride. Please have a safe weekend. Stay healthy. Hopefully it's clear for you. Get out and do some viewing. Plan your dark sky event. Whatever. Just get out there, shut the TV off, and go enjoy the nighttime sky wherever you're at. But thank you very much. Stay safe, and we will see you guys next Friday. So take care, guys. Bye.